We are so excited. Not only do we have Troy Renck coming up, but we're going to have Troy Renck coming up on Skype. And we know how much people like looking at Troy Renck as much as they do hearing his opinions.
He's like a male model.
And so we're going to go to Troy Renck to talk about the same thing we're just talking about. We're going to continue. We invite your comments about that on Twitter, or go to our Facebook page and tweet us and make comments. And the way that we put it is, should the Broncos junk whatever there is of Gary Kubiak's offense, which has been non-existent so far, and go totally to Peyton Manning's offense? Go back to what they were doing before they made that change last year, talking about. It seemed to be working well as far as I was concerned. 2 years ago, a team averaged 37.9 points a game.
It's amazing.
Do you think that that was a better offense then than this offense is now?
Yes. The only problem was this team relied totally on the passing game to advance. The defense wasn't what it is now.
And what happened at the end of the season? Where did they go?
Well, they went to the Super Bowl.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Well, I just don't understand why people don't want to at least get to the Super Bowl and have a chance. Okay, maybe you have to run. Maybe Seattle was just a better overall team. But you know what's left out in all this, Les? John Elway did this at the end of his career. Well, guess what? John Elway had a veteran offensive line. Tom Naylor, Mark Schlereth,
Gary Zimmerman, a Hall of Famer.
Gary Zimmerman. They had Tony Jones on the right side. I'm trying to remember who else they had. They had, I'll get back to you.
Who was the other guard?
Weren't those 5 veteran guys?
Oh, yeah. Well,
these are not 5 veteran guys.
He also had a guy named Terrell Davis, a Hall of Fame caliber running back.
They don't have Terrell Davis. They don't have Shannon Sharp. They do not have Shannon Sharp. They do not have Gary Zimmerman. We're talking about 3 guys that are either in the Hall of Fame or should be in the Hall of Fame.
Yep.
Terrell Davis. They had Mark Schlereth, who was a veteran, smart player. They had Tom Naylor, who's going to be in the Hall of Fame.
You think?
I believe Tom say. You have to look at his 5 or 6 Pro Bowls over the years.
Yeah.
Tom Naylor belongs in the Hall of Fame. If there's a center from the Denver Broncos, yeah, I think he's going to get a lot of votes. Tom Naylor, Mark Schlereth, Terrell Davis, Shannon Sharp, John Elway. So John remembers how effective they were running.
And the only reason we're not mentioning Rod Smith and Ed McCaffrey is the Broncos have 2 really good wide receivers right now as well.
But if you compared offenses from the John Elway era to this year right here, which one would you rather have?
Right now, I'd
Put
rather
Peyton
have
Manning in with John Elway. Put John Elway in with this.
Right.
How would John Elway be doing with this crowd right here?
Well, at this point in time, I'd rather have the 98-99 teams.
So they were 97, 98.
97,
but they played
98.
in the Super Bowl in
Right.
98, 99. I'm not nitpicking with you. But
Yes, you are.
People will write back, oh, you're off by a year. Well, I still have problems in my life trying to figure out whether you say that was the 97 team or the 98 team. To me, it's the 97 team because that's the season of 97, then the season of 98. I think that John Elway in this system would be sacked all the time and be struggling. The team would be struggling. I think you put Peyton Manning with that bunch in 97, 98 with Zimmerman out there, with Tom Naylor at center. They're trying to make Paradis into the new Tom Naylor. That's not working out. So we have Troy Renck with us, and I'm going to ask him. Troy, it's my opinion that John Elway and Gary Kubiak are trying to recreate John Elway's last 2 years. The difference is they had a veteran offensive line with a couple of Hall of Fame types in it. One for sure, Gary Zimmerman. They had Shannon Sharp at tight end, and they had Terrell Davis in the backfield. I've seen that team, and as the politicians say, this isn't that team in the offensive line or tight end. The only thing that's comparable are the wide receivers.
Yeah, that's a great observation, Woody. They certainly aren't the same team up front. I don't think they had any idea that they would be this bad and struggle this much offensively up front, especially with the addition of Evan Mathis. But they're not prepared to abandon the run for a number of reasons. And one is their 34%, 66% ratio right now of run to pass is among the worst in the league. They've become predictable. And the thing about the pass attack, I know people want to say it's been successful. They're averaging 4.2 net yards per attempt. That's the worst in the NFL. It's not really successful. It's just the only thing they've been able to do to survive. So they're still going to try to achieve some kind of balance, even if that's 40 to 60. 34-66 is not a long-term success plan. And I would argue, Woody, on this one degree where they have a little bit of space here, this defense on this team is way better than the Super Bowl defenses for me. Those defenses were playing with 21-point leads and caused turnovers, but they were nowhere near as talented as this defense.
So, Troy, what are the conversations like now at Dove Valley between Gary Kubiak, John Elway, Greg Knapp, the quarterbacks coach Peyton Manning? Where are we going to end up here? What's going on? What are they saying to one another? What's going on with that hybrid offense?
Well, they're trying to figure out why they're not blocking better up front. That's number one, Les. I mean, I know people, it's hard for them to understand this, and I get it, but Peyton Manning doesn't want to throw 45 times a game because he knows the way they're blocking right now, he's going to get hurt, and they haven't won this way. He's not saying he wants to throw 20 times, but he understands that in the NFL, if you're throwing 45 times a game, it's typically not a recipe for success. And everyone says, well, the Patriots do it. Well, they figured out their blocking scheme where they're a chameleon. One game they throw 50, the next game they run 60 times. The Broncos haven't shown they can run the ball. So what are they talking about, Les? They're trying to figure out from a technical standpoint and simplify the blocking up front and get better. And that would open up tight ends in the passing game, which have been non-existent for the most part. It would open up play action, which has been non-existent for the most part. And they want to know, is it the line? Is it the running backs? They see a little bit more blame for the line than the backs, but they're not particularly pleased with the running back play either. But they've got to figure out a way to block better up front. I mean, 5 of their worst 6 players graded on Pro Football Focus are their offensive linemen.
And we talked a lot about it because we were in the press box on Thursday night, Troy, together for a long time. But when you say the running backs, Barry Sanders, O.J. Simpson, great running backs of our lifetime, Peyton, the other Peyton.
Walter.
They couldn't run behind this offensive line. There are no holes. Where are you supposed to go? I mean, when you have zone blocking, you sort of stop. I mean, you don't stop, but you hesitate and see where the hole is. There is no hole there. I saw one hole, and that was on the first play, and I don't think Kansas City was ready to play.
Yeah.
I mean,
do we think this is going to get better? I mean,
well, they have to right now, Les, because they have, what's the other option? So of course they're talking a big game that it's going to get better, and frankly they have some personnel and and Evan Mathis and Luis Vasquez and even Ryan Harris, an experienced guy, that their track record shows they should get better. Certainly with Mathis and Vasquez, that they will play better. You're asking, Woody, where are the holes? And I agree. When I talk to the linemen and backs, it's just like they're not in sync. That sometimes when the play is blocked correctly, the timing is off, so when the running back goes, the hole's gone. And then plenty of times there's just no hole. And there's the best running play they've had is CJ making 3 guys miss for a 1-yard gain. So it's a shared blame here. There's no one thing, but the overlying premise is even when they have had right protection, they've struggled with blitzes. Even when they've called the right running play, they've struggled to gain yards. That's a concern. And they're going to have 10 days between games, and they're going against a 4-3 defense in Detroit. If they can't run better against Detroit, I mean, I think you're going to start hearing some alarms going off.
Oh, yeah. I was going to say Detroit losing their 2 best interior defensive linemen, this is not a very good team. And they struggled over the weekend.
They're giving up 30 points a game.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you can't do it against Detroit, I mean, you're talking about, whether you put Schofield in there or whether you put Garcia in at center or whether you bring Shelley Smith.
I'm wondering how much of it is tied to Evan Mathis. And once he starts getting better, that will help the 2 inexperienced guys who flank him, Sambrelo and Paradis. I'm wondering if that's what the Broncos are hoping happens.
Well, that's part of it. There's no doubt that if, like at the hitter, the one guy who's crushing it and the guys around him see better pitches. Of course, I got to talk baseball here, but if Mathis stabilizes it, then it allows margin for error for Sambrelo and Paradis. Right now, he's arguably playing worse than those 2, which is unthinkable when you look at his track record. So there's a reason to believe Mathis will figure it out. I think he misjudged the being in football shape because he's an unbelievable. He's an Adonis. I mean, 6'9" with about 3% body fat and calves that look like the size of cantaloupes. I mean, the guy's an unbelievable fitness freak. But being in shape and being in football shape, as we all know, are two different things. And I think he might have misjudged it a little bit, having no off season of football. So by week 3 now, with 10 days between games, I do believe you're going to see a much better Evan Mathis at Detroit, which should help tremendously Ty Sambrailo and Matt Paradis.
Guys, I want to ask both of you: Detroit losing to Minnesota, good for the Broncos or bad for the Broncos, or does it matter?
Troy, you want to go first?
Yeah. I think it's bad because they have a sense of urgency that their season's on the line. How many? I mean, I'd have to look it up. How many teams go 0-3 and make the playoffs? It's probably under 10%. I mean, it's 13% if you go 0-2 and to make the playoffs. So, in so many ways, they're battling for their season and their life at home on a Sunday night. So, I'd say it's bad for Denver in that regard because Detroit has everything to play for at this point.
Yeah, but Troy, it's only bad if that's a pretty good team. I don't think they're a very good team right now. Stafford is banged up. He's been banged up all year. The offensive line is maybe worse than the Broncos' offensive line. They got no running game right now. The defense is giving up 29.5 points a game. If Detroit was a good team that was mad and playing at home on a Sunday night and desperately needed a win, I'd say, okay, that's bad. I don't know that it's that bad.
Well, I have
another.
Go ahead.
They're unpredictable, though. That's the problem with Detroit.
True.
They're just an unpredictable team over the last 3-4 years. But I agree with you. They are not the team they were even last year. I mean, you lose Ndamukong Suh. He's one of the best players in the league. And Nick Fairley, I know he underachieved, but he's still pretty good. He's at least an adequate NFL player. And Stafford, like you said, being hurt, they've become very predictable. And Calvin Johnson's not the same guy he was 2-3 years ago. He's a good player. He's not the best receiver in the league anymore.
You like me around, I'm trying to make a baseball reference, but I've lost something off my fastball, but I still got the savvy. I still can hit the corners and hit the black spot.
Jamie Moyer. I'm sitting next to Jamie Moyer right now, Troy.
In 1977, the old Orange Crush, they were very good on artificial turf because they had a lot of fast guys. They had a lot of quick guys. That made them even faster and quicker. The Broncos are going for the first time in the regular season this year to play indoors on artificial turf. Is this defense better on artificial turf, do you think, Troy, because of the speed and the athletic players they have, or are they going to overplay because they're going to be faster on the artificial turf?
It's an interesting question, Woody. I do think they'll be better because their edge rushers will be better, which is hard to imagine, the fact that Vaughn and Miller and DeMarcus Ware could play at a much higher level than they have so far. But they are getting off the ball so quickly that on turf, that's another advantage for them. Their secondary's quick, smart, and Marshall. You worry about guys that've had injuries and toe injuries. The turf toe and the weird injuries. And so Marshall and Trevathan are a little bit of concern, I would think, just because the turf monster sometimes does some funny things. But on the edge and in the secondary, I agree with you, Woody, that it's only going to help a defense that's their fangs are growing each week. I mean, they've got a swag about them that I only saw one time last year, and that was after the Kansas City game at Kansas City.
They came out of that game against Kansas City pretty healthy, didn't they?
Yeah, the Kayvon Webster is dealing with an ankle. He didn't practice today, but it doesn't appear serious. Omar Bolden, who missed last week with a foot/heel injury, set out. But, the expectation is he will play. And Kenny Ananicky, who had a really nice camp, the defensive lineman who adds depth. He had his knee scoped on I think it was August 20th. He practiced today. So there's the expectation that he's at least got a 50-50 chance of playing this week. So, yeah, they're for the most part, they're healthy. And that's always a good sign. A long week, as you guys have talked about. I mean, they get through this game, and you can look ahead on their schedule, which every NFL guy hates. But they could go 6-0 if you look at their schedule if they get through this game.
Who is the most? We're 1/8 of the way through the season. You can look at it that way. People go, it's only 2 games, but it's 1/8 of the season. That's a pretty good.
Sounds big.
Situation. Yeah, whatever. MVP Defense, MVP, offense after 2 games.
Defense would be Talib with DeMarcus Ware second, and offensively it'd be Emmanuel Sanders. And I'm not sure there is a second yet on offense. Probably Manning based on that last drive, but it'd be Emmanuel Sanders for me offensively.
Yeah. It's funny. I was looking at those 2 questions earlier as well, and yeah, Emmanuel Sanders by far. I don't know who would be number 2 either, but Manning was the guy who popped into my head.
Well, how about 3 on
inconsistent.
defense? I'll give you one that I think Bradley Roby. Bradley Roby claims, and supposedly the film backs it up, that he did tip that pass in the end zone, and then he scoops up the ball. Sure, Brandon Marshall caused it. You might say Brandon Marshall was in there, but Talib, of course, had 2 interceptions. It could be.
How about Darian Stewart?
Yeah, I'm just saying, their defense, I mean, Roby, you're right. He's had 2 big moments, but they've had guys that had 2 great games. I would go, again, Talib, Ware, Von Miller, Darian Stewart, Brandon Marshall. I mean, and Denny Trevathan leads them in tackles.
Cornucopia of choices, Troy.
Wow.
What's that?
A cornucopia of choices.
You got to hope, if you're a Broncos fan, that they can keep this team healthy.
Yeah.
Intact.
And we're not even talking about Chris Harris. And he's probably, if you just think about grades and how he shuts down and works his position, he's among the best in football, but he's getting the Richard Sherman treatment where they don't even throw at him anymore.
That's why Talib's making plays.
Right. There's a reason Talib's in position to make big plays, but they're not even throwing it there.
Yeah. Chris told me that he's pissed because he's not in on the action. He said, everybody else is getting action. I'm not. He said, the only thing I get is a deflected ball.
Price of greatness. Price of greatness. At least he got paid.
Yeah. Who wins tonight, guys? You got Jets or Colts? I'm going to say Colts. I mean, this is one of those games you got to say. It's like Kansas City the other night. Kansas City had to have that game. They didn't get it. But the Colts had to have this game. And the Jets have been a little bit surprising, I think. Troy?
I'd say Colts is a statement game. They're going to win by like 20 points. I mean, like you said, Chuck Pagano's in the same position as John Fox last year. If they don't anything but a Super Bowl, he's probably getting fired. This is a statement game for them at home. I can't imagine they don't play well.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'll take the Colts. I'll give you as many points as you want. I think they're going to come out strong tonight. To a point.
Speaking of coaches, Jack Del Rio may have saved his job Sunday.
Troy,
man.
Troy,
for them.
thanks.
Yep.
As always.
He's Troy Renck of the Denver Post.